It began on the outer rim of known space, a world no one thought mattered. A forgotten colony called Vanguard-7, little more than dust, rock, and the faint echo of human ambition. But on that barren world, beneath a sky painted in perpetual twilight, humanity made its stand. The siege that would shake the entire galaxy began not with a declaration of war, but with silence. At first, the scanners picked up nothing unusual. Faint blips, heat signatures too far to interpret. Then, without warning, the stars vanished. Not because the sun had died, but because an armada had arrived. The Threx Dominion, a species so ancient and ruthless that entire civilizations had vanished beneath their shadow, had come to erase humanity from existence. Inside the walls of the outpost, Commander Arya Kane stood on the observation deck, her reflection fractured across the glass as alarms blared in every direction. She did not speak. Her officers waited, terrified, but she was calm, unnaturally calm, the kind of stillness that comes before the storm. "Ma'am, the fleet count just updated," said Lieutenant Soren, his voice trembling. "It is not a patrol. It is a full-scale invasion force." Arya turned slowly, eyes glowing faintly in the flicker of red light. "Then they are serious this time," she replied. "Signal the evacuation ships." But there were no ships to signal. Vanguard-7 was cut off from the network. The nearest human reinforcements were weeks away. The Dominion had timed this perfectly, a strike at the edge of human expansion designed to send a message. You do not belong among the stars. Arya knew the odds. Every officer did, and yet no one spoke of retreat. Humanity had not come this far to turn back now. They had been underestimated before, mocked as impulsive, emotional, and chaotic. But chaos had its uses. Humanity was unpredictable, and in war, unpredictability could be terrifying. "Activate the planetary shield," Arya ordered, "and prepare the ground batteries. We hold this planet." The command center roared to life. Across the colony, civilians ran for shelter, soldiers rushed to their posts, and the skies darkened as alien warships began their descent. Massive plasma cannons emerged from the dunes, targeting computers locking onto the incoming ships. The planet's surface became a fortress of metal and willpower. Then, the first bombardment began. The night exploded in light. Blue plasma bolts streaking down from orbit, slamming into the planet's shield like thunder striking glass. The ground shook with every impact. Arya gripped the railing, feeling the hum of the shield resonate beneath her boots. Every second felt like a lifetime. "Shield's holding at 73%, shouted an officer. Another blast hit, harder this time. The room dimmed, sparks flying from consoles. 61. Arya did not flinch. Redirect power from the southern grid. Focus everything on the northern hemisphere. That is where they are concentrating. The officers hesitated for a fraction of a second. The southern dome was where most of the civilians were sheltered. Arya knew what her order meant. She knew what would happen when that section lost power. But she also knew what would happen if the shield failed completely. Soren looked at her, eyes wide. "Commander, the southern grid. Do it," she said quietly. He obeyed. The lights flickered again. The hum of the generators deepened, and the shield held. Outside, the alien bombardment continued, relentless, methodical, merciless. Hours passed like minutes. The first breach came just before dawn. A section of the shield collapsed, and alien dropships pierced through the atmosphere like knives. The ground forces of the Threx were monstrous, towering creatures of metal and flesh, armed with weapons that bent reality itself. They landed without hesitation, and the battle began. Arya watched from the central tower as the horizon lit up with fire. Human artillery opened up from the ridgelines, rockets streaking toward the alien landing zones. The air shimmered with plasma and dust. Soldiers fought hand-to-hand in the trenches, the sound of war echoing through the canyons. Every broadcast was the same. Hold your position. Do not let them through. And somehow, impossibly, they held. Human ingenuity had always thrived in desperation. When resources ran out, they built weapons from scrap. When ammo dried up, they fought with knives, with fists, with sheer fury. Every fallen soldier became a rallying cry, every explosion a heartbeat. The aliens did not understand it, not truly. To them, warfare was precise, calculated, efficient. They had spent eons perfecting it. But humans made war personal. When a Threx warrior tore through a barricade, killing 3 soldiers, a lone engineer grabbed a fuel line and ignited it, turning himself and the enemy into a firestorm. When the alien artillery began shelling the southern dome, medics ran toward the explosions, dragging the wounded out with bare hands. "Commander, Sector 5 is collapsing." Arya leaned over the hollow map. Red icons blinked rapidly where human forces were falling back. She pressed her palms to the table, her voice low and steady. "They are not collapsing," she said. "They are drawing them in." A few seconds later, the Threx realized their mistake. The human line that had appeared broken was bait. From the cliffs above, hidden artillery opened fire. Magnetic rail cannons ripped through the alien ranks, shattering armor and bodies alike. The sky lit up again, this time with alien wreckage. Arya's plan had worked, but only for now. Because above them, the motherships were still in orbit, and sooner or later the shield would fail. In the command deck, Soren approached again, face streaked with dust and fear. "Ma'am, long-range scans show 6 additional fleets inbound. Reinforcements. We cannot win this." Arya turned toward him slowly. "We are not here to win," she said. "We are here to make them remember." She looked back at the display. "Send this transmission to all sectors." Her voice echoed across every radio, every helmet, every bunker. "This is Commander Kane. You have been told this is a losing fight. You have been told we cannot survive this siege. You have been told to retreat, to fall back, to surrender. You will do none of those things. We are the line that stands between extinction and survival. We do not retreat. We do not surrender. We hold this world, not because it can be saved, but because we must remind the galaxy who we are." The silence that followed was electric. Then, one by one, the soldiers of Vanguard-7 began to chant through the comms. "Hold the line. Hold the line. Hold the line." And from that moment, the Siege of Vanguard-7 became legend. Across the galaxy, human colonies intercepted fragments of the broadcast. Even alien civilizations, those who had dismissed humanity as reckless primitives, began to listen. For the first time, they saw something terrifying in the human voice: conviction. Because in that moment, humanity was not just fighting for a planet. They were fighting for an idea. The idea that no matter the odds, no matter the enemy, humans do not break. The dawn broke red over the battlefield, and the war for the galaxy's future had truly begun. The second day of the siege began with silence. Not peace, silence. The kind that follows devastation. Smoke coiled over the dunes of Vanguard-7, and the air shimmered with heat from still burning wreckage. The once bustling colony now looked like a graveyard. Twisted steel, shattered domes, and the black scars of bombardment etched into the earth. The shield was still holding, but barely. Cracks of raw energy rippled through the barrier like lightning veins. From orbit, the Threx fleet loomed, unbothered, unbroken, waiting for the humans to exhaust themselves. To them, it was not a siege. It was cleansing. But on the ground, humanity refused to die quietly. Commander Arya Kane stood in the ruins of the command center. Her armor scorched and cracked, her once pristine uniform smeared with ash. Around her, the remaining officers were running on adrenaline and stubbornness alone. "How long can the generators last?" she asked, not looking up from the flickering holomap. 2 hours at most," replied Soren, his voice hollow. We are losing power faster than we can reroute. Half the city is gone. We have lost contact with sectors 9 and 10. Arya exhaled slowly. And the civilians? Still in the bunkers beneath the southern ridge. But the ventilation systems are failing. If the shield drops, they will be exposed. The commander's jaw tightened. Every decision she made carried a death sentence for someone. Every order was a gamble. Outside, the horizon trembled, not with footsteps but with engines. Hundreds of alien transports descended from the clouds, their hulls glowing with eerie blue light. The Threx ground army was preparing its final assault. "They are coming," said Soren, staring through the viewport. Arya nodded once. "Then let us welcome them." By midday, the battle had reignited. The Threx swarmed the outer trenches, wave after wave of biomechanical warriors. They advanced in perfect formation, each step synchronized, each movement calculated. Their weapons hissed with plasma, cutting through metal and flesh alike. The human defenders fought back with everything they had. Snipers fired from shattered rooftops, engineers manned turrets built from scrap, and drones zigzagged through the smoke, detonating in suicide runs. But there were too many. The Threx advanced through sheer numbers. Their ranks endless, their discipline unshakable. For every alien that fell, 10 more emerged from the fog. "Sector 5 has fallen," a voice cried through the comms. "We are surrounded." "Negative," Arya replied. "You are not surrounded. You are in every direction the enemy faces. Hold your ground." It was a lie, a beautiful, necessary lie. But it gave them what they needed most: hope. Hours turned to chaos. The air was thick with dust and blood. The ground shook with the weight of falling titans, the Threx war beasts, colossal creatures encased in armor, each carrying plasma cannons on its back. Human artillery tried to stop them, but the shells barely made a dent. That was when Sergeant Elias Ward, a demolitions expert with a reputation for insanity, came up with a plan that no sane person would consider. "Commander," he said over the comms, his voice crackling, "I am going to take one of those beasts down." "You will not survive," Arya warned. He laughed. "Was not planning to." Before she could respond, Ward mounted a damaged hoverbike, the front half of it still smoking, and sped straight into the battlefield. Plasma bolts tore past him as he weaved through the chaos, his armor melting in places, his visor flashing warnings. He carried 2 fusion charges strapped to his chest and a grin on his face. When he reached the Threx war beast, it turned its cannon toward him. Ward shouted one final line that the battlefield would never forget. "If humanity must fall, we are taking your gods with us." Then he launched the bike straight into the creature's chest. The explosion was blinding. The shockwave rippled across the entire battlefield, throwing soldiers from both sides to the ground. When the smoke cleared, the war beast was gone. Nothing left but molten fragments and a crater wide enough to swallow a tank. Ward was gone too. But his sacrifice did more than destroy a weapon. It reignited the human spirit. All along the trenches, soldiers began to rise, screaming battle cries into the chaos. The Threx hesitated for the first time. They were not used to this. Enemies who fought harder the closer they came to death. Inside the command center, Soren stared at the readings. "Commander, you should see this," he said, astonished. "They are slowing down. The alien advance has stalled." Arya's tired eyes lifted from the console. "Then we hit them again, but we have no ammunition left. Then use them." Within minutes, human engineers repurposed fallen Threx weapons, salvaging alien plasma rifles, mounting enemy turrets onto human vehicles. The battlefield became an inferno of innovation. Where the Threx saw order, humans created chaos, unpredictable, uncontrollable, unstoppable. Arya coordinated it all like a conductor of war, her voice calm, her orders precise. To her soldiers, she had become more than a commander. She was a symbol, the embodiment of defiance itself, but even symbols bleed. As night fell again, the Threx made their move. From orbit, the mothership opened its core, a weapon not meant for sieges but annihilation. A beam of pure energy sliced through the atmosphere, hitting the planet's shield with godlike force. The world screamed, the barrier shattered like glass, shards of light raining across the sky. The shockwave tore through the colony, flattening buildings, vaporizing entire squads. In the chaos, Arya was thrown across the room. Her ears rang. The lights flickered. For the first time she felt fear, not for herself, but for her people. "Status report," she shouted, forcing herself up. "Shields gone. Total collapse. They are coming through." The last line of defense had fallen, and then the Threx descended. Dozens of drop pods slammed into the ground, bursting open to reveal elite shock troopers, towering, blade-armed monsters designed for close combat. They moved with terrifying speed, cutting through soldiers like wind through grass. The colony's streets became rivers of fire and steel. Arya grabbed a fallen rifle and joined the fight herself. She was no longer a commander issuing orders from afar. She was on the front lines, side by side with her soldiers. Plasma bolts seared the air, blades clashed, screams echoed through the ruins. At one point, a Threx trooper lunged at her, its blade slicing through her shoulder plate. She spun, fired point blank, and the alien collapsed in a heap of smoking armor. "Commander down," someone shouted. She wiped blood from her visor. "I am still here," she growled. "Keep fighting!" In orbit, the Threx admiral observed through holographic lenses. To him, this was inevitable. The humans were cornered, exhausted, hopeless. The siege was nearly over. "End it," he said coldly. But he did not understand what humanity truly was. Because at that very moment, in the chaos of the lower city, a group of engineers led by Lieutenant Soren had discovered something. The remains of an experimental reactor, one capable of generating a gravitational implosion, a weapon powerful enough to collapse the entire battlefield, including themselves. They called Arya. "Commander, we found a way to stop them," Soren said. "But if we activate it, nothing survives, not them, not us." Arya hesitated for the first time, not out of fear, but out of the crushing weight of choice. She could end the siege and erase everything. Her voice broke slightly. "Are there any civilians left in the southern bunkers?" "Negative. They were all evacuated before the last strike." She closed her eyes. "Then do it." Soren looked around at his team. No one spoke. No one protested. They all knew what this meant. He placed his hand on the activation core. "For Vanguard," he said softly, and the world began to tremble. The reactor's hum deepened, its glow spreading across the colony's ruins. The Threx, realizing too late what was happening, began to retreat toward their ships. But the humans were already gone, not physically but spiritually. They had accepted their fate. Arya stood at the top of the command tower, watching the alien ships rise into the burning sky. "For the galaxy to remember," she whispered. Then the light consumed everything. When the explosion cleared, there was nothing left. The planet had vanished, replaced by a silent void, a scar in space where Vanguard-7 once stood. For weeks, the galaxy was silent. The Threx halted their expansion. No one dared speak of what had happened, until a human transmission began to echo through the void, endlessly repeating a single line. "Humanity does not retreat. We remind the stars who we are." And that message spread farther than any weapon ever could, because the siege had ended, but the legend had only just begun. When the explosion swallowed Vanguard-7, the galaxy stopped. For the first time in centuries, every signal, every fleet, every empire fell silent. The Threx Armada, once the most feared force in known space, stood adrift in orbit, watching as the ashes of an entire world faded into nothingness. There were no survivors, no wreckage to recover, no cities to rebuild. The planet had been erased from existence. At first, the Threx command celebrated. They had won, or so they told themselves. The humans were gone, annihilated by their own desperate act. Yet the celebration was hollow, short-lived. The Admiral, a towering figure of chrome and flesh, stared into the empty void where the planet once spun and whispered to his second-in-command, "They destroyed themselves. To destroy us." There was no pride in his voice, only unease, because deep down even the Threx knew. Something had changed that day. The humans were gone. But their defiance had scarred the stars themselves. 3 weeks later, far beyond the shattered sector, in a quiet system at the edge of human-controlled space, a lone listening post detected something strange. A faint, distorted signal. At first, it was dismissed as static interference from debris fields, but when they isolated it, the signal repeated, and it was human. "This is Vanguard-7, we do not retreat." The officer on duty stared in disbelief. "That's impossible," she murmured. The message kept looping, not once, but hundreds of times, broadcasting from the coordinates of the destroyed planet. No source could be located. No transmitter could have survived that blast. The scientists called it a glitch. The soldiers called it impossible. But among the survivors scattered across the human colonies, it became something else entirely. A message from the dead, a reminder that humanity's will could not be erased, not by fire, not by fear, not even by extinction. They began to call it the Vanguard Echo. Across the galaxy, the story spread. Whispered first in the hidden corners of spaceports, then shouted in the halls of governments and war rooms. The Threx had won the siege. But they had also lost something far more important. The illusion that they could ever truly dominate humanity. Other alien species watched in silence, unease rippling through their empires. Some had once mocked humanity for its recklessness, its violence, its unpredictability. Now they studied the recordings of Vanguard-7, the images of humans fighting to the last breath, and saw something terrifyingly beautiful. Something they could never replicate. The humans had not just died. They had chosen to die, and in doing so they had turned their destruction into a message that echoed across the stars. "We do not retreat." It was not just a slogan, it was a promise. Months later, when the Threx tried to invade another human world, Helion Prime, they expected an easy victory. The humans were still recovering, rebuilding, scattered and weak, but when the Threx fleet arrived, they found the planet's orbital defenses already online. Its skies filled with ships, civilian vessels turned into war machines, mining rigs armed with rail cannons, cargo freighters packed with marines, and across every transmission channel, one phrase greeted them. "This is Helion Prime. We stand as Vanguard stood." The Threx hesitated. The humans fired first. The battle that followed lasted only 6 hours. The Threx fleet retreated in disarray. The first time in recorded history they had done so. And from that day forward, a new doctrine was written into every human soldier's oath. We are the descendants of Vanguard. We fight even when hope dies, because we do not retreat. In the following years, the galaxy changed. The Threx Empire began to fracture. Their soldiers, once fearless, now flinched at the sight of human insignia. The word human itself became synonymous with chaos, with defiance, with madness, with a kind of courage no artificial mind could calculate. Some alien civilizations began forming pacts with humanity, not out of friendship but out of fear, the kind of fear that respects power earned through sacrifice. And yet, among humans there was no celebration, no victory parades, only remembrance. The Vanguard Memorial was built on a moon near Mars, a colossal monument carved from asteroid steel, engraved with every name lost in the siege. At its center burned an eternal flame, fueled by plasma extracted from the ruins of Threx wreckage. Every year, on the anniversary of the siege, the flame burned brighter, and the message played again, the same message that started it all. This is Vanguard-7, we do not retreat. The galaxy listened, and the galaxy remembered. But legends have a strange way of reshaping reality. Decades later, explorers from the Terran Frontier expedition were charting the remains of the Vanguard system. They expected radiation, silence, nothing. Instead, they found something impossible. Fragments of a human cruiser, the UHS Resolute, drifting intact within the debris field. Inside were frozen logs, half-corrupted data, and one last recorded message from Commander Arya Kane herself. The crew managed to reconstruct it. The hologram flickered to life. Arya stood there, armor cracked, eyes fierce but calm. "If anyone finds this," she began, her voice steady, "then humanity lives. And that means we did not fail. We knew we would not survive. But survival was never the point. The galaxy needed to see that fear is not our master, that we can stand against the impossible and choose defiance over surrender. Tell them we fought. Tell them we burned. Tell them Vanguard held. And tell them, she paused, looking directly into the camera, her eyes blazing. We do not retreat. The hologram ended. Silence filled the ship. And then, softly, reverently, the captain of the expedition whispered, "Welcome home." Commander, that recording spread across human space like wildfire. It became more than history. It became scripture. The Siege of Vanguard-7 was no longer seen as tragedy. It was transformation. The day when humanity ascended from mere survivors to something eternal. Because even in death, they had conquered the galaxy's greatest weapon, fear itself. In time, the Threx Empire fell, broken not by fleets, not by weapons, but by the shadow of human courage. They tried to erase all records of the siege, but it was too late. The story had taken root across the stars. Children of alien races whispered it before sleep. Soldiers of distant worlds studied it before battle. And everywhere the name human was spoken, it carried both dread and awe. For they had learned the one truth that would outlast empires: you can destroy a human body. You can silence a human voice, but you can never kill the human spirit, because it is not bound by flesh. It burns in defiance, forged in chaos, and born from an unbreakable truth. Humans do not retreat. Epilogue. The message beyond the stars 1,000 years later. Deep within the archives of an alien research vessel, a transmission is discovered. A relic from the ancient human wars. The archivist plays it. Static fills the room. Then a voice, faint but clear, cuts through the noise. "This is Vanguard-7, we do not retreat." The alien stares at the console, frozen. "They are gone," he whispers. "Extinct for centuries." And yet, somewhere, across the endless black, the message still echoes. A voice from the past, a warning to the future, and a promise that no matter how far time carries us, humanity never truly dies.